Everyone told me that this series was going to change my life, and unfortunately, it just didn't. Hi all, it's me, Allison. Welcome back to my channel. October every single year is my favorite month of reading. Is it because I love all things spooky? Maybe. October is just the perfect month to read about werewolves, vampires, ghosts, witches, literally anything with magic, which just so happens to be my favorite genre of reading. I read 10 books this month, and every single one of them, except for one, had some kind of spooky element. I was levitating. So today I want to talk about all of the books that I read this month and air out all of my unfiltered thoughts. So let's get into my October Wrapped. So the first book that I read this month was Nightshade by Autumn Woods. She's actually a brand new author to me, and I am so excited that I picked up this book because, guys, what a way to start off October. This book was so good. I am itching to read the next one. So basically, this book is about our female main character, Ophelia, who gets accepted into this pretty prestigious Scottish university against the wishes of her dead parents. She goes there to seek the truth about the real reason why her parents died and get revenge on the man who she thinks is responsible. So the thing about this university is that there are a lot of crimes that get covered up here. Murder is basically an extracurricular on campus. So as Ophelia starts digging deeper and deeper into the truth of her parents' death, she does end up getting a stalker who kind of threatens to unalive her if she doesn't stop digging. On top of all of this, she meets our male main character, Alex, who is a very famous billionaire, and she can't help but find him wildly attractive. And as much as she tries, she can't seem to stay away from him, even though he is the son of the man that allegedly killed her parents. Between being paired together for a project and becoming each other's alibis in a murder investigation, avoiding Alex becomes increasingly impossible. Guys, this book was just so good. It had just enough suspense and spookiness to intrigue you about why her parents' death was covered up, why no one has heard about it, things like that. It was so good. But on top of all of that, her fighting her feelings for Alex and then eventually just giving in was so satisfying. He actually is the perfect male main character, if I do say so myself. I have to say, this book ended on the worst cliffhanger you can ever imagine. So I am actually itching on the edge of my seat, waiting for news about book 2. Due to the really good romance coupled with the really good suspense, I ended up giving this book a 4 stars. Pick it up. I'm begging you to pick it up. All right, so this next book, I want absolutely zero judgment. I mean it. The next book that I read was The Tyrant Alpha's Rejected Mate by Kate C. Wells. I understand that this title sounds like one of those really cringy drama box reels that I keep seeing on my For You page, but this book actually was so good. I was so pleasantly surprised of how much I enjoyed this one despite the heinous cover and the heinous title. You guys know I have an obsession with werewolf literature, and this hit the spot. I am so picky, and this hit the spot. So in this book, we're following defective wolf Una. She is struggling to wolf out, plus she has a limp ankle, and so therefore she is an outcast in this pack. All of this starts to change when her wolf decides that she's going to enter the chat, and she realizes that their alpha is actually her mate. The thing is, he fully rejects her as his mate, and then she is forced to deal with the physical agony of losing her mate, so much so that it drives her to go to this witchy elder wolf to ask her to sever their bond. This ends up being a huge source of tension, especially when Alpha Killian's wolf decides that he cannot stay away from Una. King literally slept on her front porch because he physically could not leave her presence. Guys, this book is just everything that you want in a werewolf book. It gave everything that it needed to give. It was so good. I ended up giving this one also a 4 stars. Kind of staying on track with the werewolf vibes, if you haven't watched my vlog where I read my most anticipated read of the year, Let me recap it for you. Mate by Ali Hazelwood was the air in my lungs and the blood in my veins this month. This book was the sequel to Bride, which is obviously one of my favorite books of all time, and Ali Hazelwood did not come to play. So this book was about Serena, who was the first ever human/werewolf hybrid whose existence was supposed to like heal the bonds and the ties between the two species. But unfortunately, it just made her a target in the ongoing war between vampires, werewolves, and humans. Here comes Cohen Alexander, the alpha of the Northwest Territory, and he knows instantly that Serena is his mate. And while she doesn't reciprocate his feelings immediately, he will do anything it will take to make sure that she's safe. As threats start to close in, Serena starts to face her hidden past, and Cohen is struggling to figure out how to be an alpha for his pack, but also be a mate for Serena. And unfortunately, there are just a lot of roadblocks in the way. One, for instance, Cohen's pack made him take a vow of celibacy in order to be the alpha. So he physically and emotionally cannot even be with Serena because they feel like he cannot be a mate and also be an alpha. This book was just so good. It was exactly what we needed in a sequel for Bride. It gave everything that I was expecting. I had really high expectations for this book, and I felt very satisfied by the end of it. It was obviously a 5 stars for me. The last video I posted was a full recap of me reading the Harry Potter series for the very first time. So in October, I ended up reading the last 2 books in the series. So next, I read Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. This was definitely one of my favorite books in the series. I felt like this is when all of the characters were starting to be really mature, the romance was kind of picking up, and the plot was just so much more intriguing because we are getting closer and closer to that climax in which Voldemort obviously tries to kill Harry Potter. But the one thing that really threw me off about this series was the complete and utter lack of emotion when Dumbledore died. The reaction from Harry just didn't give what it needed to give. I was expecting more of like a deeper emotional reaction towards him, and it just kind of fell flat to me personally. But other than that, I really enjoyed this book. I did end up giving it 4 stars. If you do want to see my entire journey of reading the Harry Potter series, be sure to check out my last video. So my next read was a zombie apocalypse type vibe, Dating After the End of the World by Geneva Rose. This was actually my book club pick for this month, and to say it was interesting is a bit of an understatement. So in this book, we're following our female main character, Casey, who grew up basically preparing for the end of the world because her dad was a doomsday prepper. Many years later, you see that she is working in a hospital a little bit further away from home. She doesn't really call home anymore. She doesn't really talk to her dad. She's engaged to one of the doctors at the hospital. Things are great. One night, a bunch of people start coming into the hospital being very sick. They can't understand the symptoms, and then things start to shift, and basically the people in the hospital start to try and eat the nurses and the doctors. Obviously, from there, the world turns on its axis and we're at the end of the world. Everyone's getting sick. People are eating brains. It's a whole ordeal. Basically, after being abandoned by her fiance, she goes back home to her father's doomsday compound. She finds out that her father has let her high school bully, Blake, live there and be kind of part of the community, as you will, in this compound, and she is pissed. So from there, we're just seeing how these people are trying to survive the end of the world. She is blatantly just being a complete and utter child when it comes to Blake, and is so petty and immature even though she is a full-grown adult. I think that is what made this book so irritating for me, because of all of the immaturity that we saw from our female main character. And it didn't end. Like, even when they were together, it still did not end. She was still so petty. And it just really rubbed me the wrong way. And unfortunately, like, the romance was just not good. So I did ended up giving it 3 stars because I thought the concept was really cool. And I felt like it did what it needed to do as far as like a zombie apocalypse. But it did not do what it needed needed to do as far as a romance. So the next book I read was an arc actually from NetGalley. It was called Unfinished Business by Kara Calloway. And guys, it actually just came out on Halloween, so you have to go pick it up. It was so good. I'll be honest, I usually don't try and get books that I've never heard of or from authors that I've never heard of on NetGalley, but for some reason, this cover was speaking to me and I had to request to get it. You guys, it was perfect for Halloween. So basically, this book is about our female main character, Winona, as she and her brother are kind of like ghost chasers on YouTube or something similar to that effect. So in the beginning of this book, they end up going to a prison that ended up being abandoned because they're trying to solve this really old murder case and give that family some rest and peace with the situation, right? Winona's brother had an emergency and had to leave, so Winona was like, I'll take care of the B-roll here and I will try and do my best until you get back. You guys want to know that her ex-boyfriend, who's a storm chaser on YouTube, just so happens to show up and is also trying to set up base in this prison. You guys, they haven't seen each other in 2 years. Basically, this is a second chance romance if you didn't pick that up, and I ate it up. This book had twists, it had spice, it had heartfelt moments, and you know that I am a sucker for a second chance romance, so this was genuinely the book for me. And I'm pretty sure that this is Kara's first ever novel, so I'm excited to follow her moving forward just because of how much I enjoyed this book. I was thoroughly impressed and I ended up giving it 4 stars. So this next book is a new release by one of my favorite authors, Chelsea Curto. This was a haunted house, serial killer, stalker romance to kind of sum it up. Unfortunately, I don't want to say too much about this book because I did a full deep dive on this book with the video that's coming out next week, but I just want to say that it was not what I was expecting. And the next book that I read will also be featured in that vlog, and that is Taurus Season by Bryn Weaver. I also don't want to say too much, but I will say I was very surprised of how much I actually enjoyed that one a lot. So if you were interested in hearing my thoughts on those two, be sure to subscribe so that you can be notified when my vlog for next week comes out. So the next book I read was Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, which is obviously the last book in that series. I'll be honest, I was kind of disappointed. I felt like that book just didn't thoroughly conclude and have like that epic ending that you want in the last book in a 7-book series. And unfortunately, like I was zoning out a lot and it took me way longer than it should have to finish this book. There were obviously things I enjoyed. I liked that we got to see Harry and Ron and Hermione in the future towards the end. It's really sad. A bunch of people die in that book that is just like heartbreaking, but at the same time, I couldn't really feel much for them because the writing just doesn't harp on emotions at all. And so I feel like every death was just kind of like swiped over and no one really talked about it again. Whatever. It doesn't matter. I did finish the Harry Potter series. I ended up giving Deathly Hallows 3 stars. It really wasn't my favorite in the series. And honestly, I was just a little disappointed by the end of it. Okay, so this next book is actually the one non-magical book that I read this month, and that is Never Been Shipped by Alicia Thompson. This was a random Libby loan that just so happened to come across my desk. And so I was listening to the audiobook for a while. And honestly, guys, I thoroughly enjoyed it. So basically, this book is about an old washed up rock band that has the opportunity to perform again on this cruise. Going into it, our female main character, Micah, is a little hesitant, not only because her horrible ex-boyfriend was also in the band, but also she hasn't talked to her best friend in the years since the band broke up, which is about 9 years. He is also in the band, by the way. Throughout this, you find out that her best friend John actually has been in love with her his entire life. So now is the opportunity for John to finally have the woman that he has always dreamed about. This book was just so sweet. It was so good. You know I love a Friends to Lovers. It's one of my favorite genres of all time. So obviously I was going to eat this up, but I just felt like the setting of being on a cruise ship and the idea that they were all in this rock band together when they were teenagers, it felt nostalgic. Even though they're fictional characters, it just felt so good to see these characters reconcile with each other. I loved it. And I have to say that the spice level was pretty good considering they were on a cruise for a week, guys. Like, it was really good. Anyway, I absolutely loved. I ended up giving it 4 stars. Well, guys, that is all of the books that I read in the month of October. As you can see, I was really diving into the spooky vibe of this month. I would love to hear your reads. Comment down below any books that stood out to you in the month of October. I'll also leave social media links down below. I have Instagram, TikTok, Goodreads, my podcast, so be sure to check those out if you don't mind. But for now, bye guys.